roll all the way through this place. It's right next to hot mic.
Just joining us, we're live here at Fohs Hall. We are about to start the second section of the night, which will include questions for both the sheriff and mayor races. Looks like they're finishing up the drawing of who will go in what order. After both the sheriff and mayor candidates finish with their section of the night, we will move on to the city council candidates, who will also have about 3 minutes each to address the crowd. So looks like we're getting ready to get started.
All right, if everyone is about ready to get back to the action, I think things are going to become a little more lively now. This will be the question-answer portion of the program. But first, we have Donna Gurton here. She has a special assistant, and we're going to draw for some of the door prizes. Who are you? Oh, that's Lily Newcomb. JB, we need you as well. Come down, JB. You're Sergeant at Arms. What is this for, Don?
This is for the door prize, and it's first pick.
First pick for the door prizes up here.
625-820.
625-820. 625-820. 625-820. Is that Lynn Becker coming down? All right, Lynn Becker. Lucky man. So Lynn is going to donate his prize back. Appreciate that. Someone else will be a lucky winner. $625-796. 625-796. Now, if you have this one, you have to take it because we'll be here all night. All right. Okay. Thank you, Natalie.
$625-765.
625-765. 625-765. One more time. 625-765. Going once. Twice. We'll assume they're not here. So. 625-830. 625-830. 625-830. No? Going once. Twice. All right, we're going to pick another one. All right, Lily, what do you have here?
625-793.
That's good. Do that again.
625-793.
625. There we go. All right, we're going to give this away now. Your choice. Thank you. All right, last one, JB. Here you go.
625-837. 625-837.
625-837. All right. All right.
Let's give them a hand.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good job, brother.
All right, now we're going to move into the general election sheriff's race. And if the two candidates will meet in the lobby and they will draw for position, and the other will be in a soundproof room somewhere. And if you don't believe these walls are soundproof, go behind one of them. You can't even get an internet signal through these old, well-built walls of Fohs Hall. So, are the candidates ready? In the meantime, while we're waiting, I will remind everyone that, of course, Sheriff Wayne Agent, who has been the longest serving sheriff in the history of Crittenden County, has chosen not to run again. We appreciate Wayne Agent and all that he's done. Good man right there. Good man. He's been a good sheriff, and he's been fair people, and I know we hate to lose him, but we have two fine candidates that are ready to step in and fill some big shoes. So, Tracy, do we have our first candidate? Ready. Tell me which one it is. I can't see. Oh, Evan Head. Evan Head is the Republican, and he won the primary. A five-man primary. So, Evan Head, we will let me set the stage for you, so to speak, here, Evan. So you have a total of 10 minutes, and we will. You have been prepared. Each candidate has been prepared with two of the questions, and we have what we call a wild card questions they have not seen. So we give them the opportunity to prepare for a couple of them. So what we will do, we will begin with question number one. As sheriff candidate, Evan, a drug epidemic, like in so many other communities, is a real problem in Crittenden County. What specifically would you do to help improve the situation, and how would you fund it? Because incarceration, as we know, is expensive. It's expensive to taxpayers. And drug addiction counseling is a limited local resource.
I believe in taking a proactive approach when dealing with our current drug problem. When you have a reactive approach, the damage has already been done. People become addicted, dealers have set up shop, and it's a constant drain on our society. So many families are being affected in a negative way due to drug abuse and drug sales. When you have dealing, you're going to have stealing in your communities, fatal vehicle crashes, innocent people are killed, child abuse, neglect, and assaults on citizens and law enforcement occurs. Our department will go after the predators, and these people are predators who are bringing this poison into our community. These predators have no concern for the safety and welfare of our clients, nor do they care about the damage they are inflicting upon our community. They are only looking to profit financially. Here locally, as all across our nation, these predators are in the drug sales business, and business is good. To take a step to eliminate these predators from our community and show them that this type of behavior would not be tolerated is a step in the right direction. Having worked with local, state, and federal agencies to take down known drug predators, I know that this solution can and will slow, but I cannot stop the flow of drugs into our community. I will work in cooperation with these agencies to take down local predators again, if allowed to be your next sheriff. I have had successful investigations where we seized over 1 pound of methamphetamine, and where I alone worked an investigation seizing over 3/4 of a pound of methamphetamine. Building on community trust and believing that you can come and talk to me and trust that your conversation stays with me is one of the steps to combating drugs. I only have to get lucky once, but they have to be lucky every day. You, the community, are multiple sets of eyes and ears, and when something doesn't seem right, I want you to know that you can come talk to me. Our conversation stays between you and I, and it's on me and my deputies to go out and work the tips and information that you give us. Even though it is not the responsibility of the sheriff's office to fund these important issues, I do realize the importance to work with appropriate entities to ensure physical responsibility for these issues. We have a responsibility to make certain that families or persons have every tool at their means of disposal to try and help them through a drug abuse situation. We have tools that can allow us to remedy this problem without criminal charges. Casey's Law, which was passed on April the 9th, 2004, took effect on July the 13th, 2004, allows parents, relatives, and or friends to petition the court on behalf of the substance abuse impaired person. I do believe that drug abuse and counseling programs have a positive effect, but they only work when someone truly is wanting to make a change in their life. I'd also like to try to partner with the Mcgahan County Sheriff's Office and to build upon their program called Badges of Hope and expand it into Crittenden County. Is that my timer?
So, you all know Randy Manley, right? He's a former Marine and police officer himself, and he's not only the timer, he's sergeant at arms. So, and we have Kathleen Guest here as well, helping the man, and we're going to be pretty strict on this. So just as a follow-up to that, Evan, you make some great points, and we know that fighting the drug epidemic is going to be expensive, right? Where does the money come from to fight addiction? We have such limited resources here. Is there anything that you think you can do as sheriff to help improve that?
Partnering with drug abuse and counseling programs, like where McGrath County has their badges of hope. If a person comes to you, it's not a get out of jail free card, but it means like you don't have a warrant. We're going to get you into the drug abuse counseling program. And if you have insurance, it's going to be billed. If you don't have insurance, that facility will still accept you and provide treatment at a no-cost basis. The funding is limited on that. And ultimately, it does fall on the backs of you, the taxpayers, through incarceration. But when you look at what we've been doing and turning repeat offenders out, and you look at what that costs in man hours, when you get officers who are hurt, now they have to be off, someone has to cover their shifts, that's damage to county property, when your homes are being broken into. You've got to either help these people to get treatment or to try to work at looking at incarceration. That's your two avenues here.
Let's move on to, we're going to move on to the wild card question here. I'm going to sandwich it in between here. So Evan, already one deputy has left the sheriff's department, the current sheriff's department. And it's unclear if the other two deputies that are on duty now, each who ran against you in the primary election, would stay even if they're invited. With that in mind, how would you recruit qualified personnel to build your sheriff's department if elected?
3 minutes? 2 minutes, okay. I've had conversations with multiple people. I've been involved at where I work at in the hiring process. You have to advertise your jobs. You have to reach out to the retirees that you've got in your community now who are former state troopers, who are former Marion PD officers, who are former Crittenden County Sheriff's deputies, and ask them, are they willing to come back and to help you? It would be a smooth transition if you can keep your current staff and have pretty much just a changing of the guard in the person who is the supervisor of the sheriff. If that does not happen, you've got to have a backup plan. It is hard to bring people in to want to come work here when you look at the difference in the pay from Crittenden County Sheriff's Office to surrounding counties, to the retirement system. Crittenden has a non-hazardous. Caldwell County has a hazardous. Princeton PD, where I worked at, has a hazardous retirement. When the insurance benefits are better, it is going to take cooperation with the physical court to be able to say, I need something to entice people to come work for me, and not just to use this department as a stepping stone to get hired and then to move on to other places that do offer better benefits and better pay packages.
As you mentioned, recruiting people who are from here is important. I think right now, every deputy that we have in the department was born right here in Crittenden County. So with that being said, if you have to go look outside of Crittenden County, or if you have to take newcomers, first-time law enforcement recruits, and they have to go off to training, which is 20 weeks. So how will you manage that void in your department if you have these guys gone off for 20 weeks?
It's going to take a lot of partnership with the Kentucky State Police. I have reached out to other counties. I'm not going to name those counties just yet. The sheriffs of those counties have asked me not to, but they assured me that they will send people. The Kentucky Sheriff's Association motto is "No sheriff stands alone," and I have reached out to neighboring sheriff agencies, and they said, I guarantee you, you will not be standing alone until you can fill the void if all the employees do leave.
So we'll move along now to question number 3. As sheriff, your responsibilities would be varied. Beyond being the county's top law enforcement officer and policing the community, you will have administrative responsibilities. Tantamount to them all is the collection of taxes, the handling of the public's money. But you will also need to prepare a budget for your office, and that will be subject to state audit, and you'll have to manage employees. So what administrative skills and experience would you bring to the sheriff's department in order to handle all these other responsibilities that are beyond just law enforcement?
I have been employed in law enforcement since 2016, following my graduation from the Kentucky Department of Criminal Justice Training Academy. And I have actively been involved in the daily functions and activities related to law enforcement. I have been employed by the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office, and I have developed a working knowledge of the functions of the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's duties are 4 areas: tax collection, which is the #1 job, service of the courts, service of criminal, civil procedures, and law enforcement. There are many duties of the Sheriff's Office to maintain and stay abreast of, from employee training, collection, processing, and storage of evidence, maintaining juvenile records, collision reports, court-ordered transports for prisoners and people suffering mental health issues, election duties, answering open record requests, bailiffing of court, service of criminal and civil papers, maintaining investigation records and ensuring that those cases are followed up in a timely manner, requests from insurance companies and law offices for collision and criminal investigations, inspection of vehicles that have been purchased out of the state of Kentucky and have been brought back into the state of Kentucky. I have been involved in all of these areas for the last years. I just recently had a class on evidence and property room management, and the first day of the class, our instructor asked us, how many of your agencies told you that they just gave you a one-way trip to the federal penitentiary for this class? That's how important evidence collection and preservation is. Tax collection has many different parts and examples. By law, the sheriff is allowed to keep up to 4% of the collected amounts for our schools, and a minimum of 1.5%. The sheriff may not make a profit from collection of the school taxes. Also, by the 10th day of each month, the sheriff must pay to the county treasurer and report to the judge executive all county taxes and other money that has been collected. I have been involved in the budget process at Caldwell County Sheriff's Department. I do have a working knowledge on how to prepare and how to make sure that we operate within our budget. I've also managed my own accounts and budgets, operating a small farm, and I do know that the importance of making sure that every dollar is spent effectively and responsibly. Any new incoming sheriff will not know what his or her working budget is until they take office. The sheriff's budget has to be submitted to the state by January the 15th of each year. Unlike other county offices who operate on a fiscal year, it is my understanding that our sheriff's office operates through fee pooling. Therefore, the fees that are collected through the sheriff's department are turned over to the fiscal court, and the fiscal court in turn then approves and our requested budget for the sheriff's office. I do know what items are needed, and I know what to ask for from these amounts, but once again, that has to be approved by the fiscal court.
Okay, as a follow-up to that, the legislature passed a bill earlier this year that will require eventually all schools, some of them already have begun to do this, is to provide an SRO, a school resource officer, on every single campus. Of course, here in this county, we have 2 campuses. We already provide 1 SRO. I think the Sheriff's Department provides the cruiser, the uniform. I'm sure you're up on all this. So explain how important that is to you to see that other campus have an SRO, and how will you help fund that?
That is one of my top priorities. I have a child at elementary school, and I have a 9-month-old coming up. So I know the importance of school safety and security. And I've had conversations with incoming physical court members. I've had conversations with some of the school personnel. We've got to have a second school resource officer. It's going to take all parties coming together and finally saying, this is not a want, this is not a pretty thing, this is something that we have to have as much as the drinking water that you all have been fighting for in the city of Marion. What price tag can you put on your children's safety? School should be their safe place. When you look at what happened at Uvalde, Texas, we should take the lessons that was learned from Uvalde and grow upon that to try to be able to stop a situation that happens here if it ever does happen here. Failing to plan is planning to fail. You've got to sit down at the table and say, we've got to have this, we are going to have this, how are we going to fund it? Once again, it's going to take the cooperation of the fiscal court and the school board coming together and everybody meeting in the middle. I will advocate for that. I've got two main reasons. One of them is an 8-year-old little girl named Mcgahan Head. And I know I've had conversations with our judge executive. Perry, I can't see you right now because of the lights, but we've had conversations about things that need to be addressed up there. I'm not going to stand here and tell you what needs to be addressed right now. I don't really feel like I should tell you every problem that we have seen, but there are issues that we've got to fix on that.
All right. Evan Head, you're a Republican candidate for Crittenden County Sheriff. Thank you. And while we are, well, here we go. I believe we have our Democratic candidate for Crittenden County Sheriff who ran unopposed in the primary election back in the spring, Don Young. Don, I assume you have read the format and know that we're going to ask you some questions and then have some follow-up. So we will begin with question number 1. A drug epidemic, like in so many other communities, is a real problem here in Crittenden County. What specifically would you do to help improve the situation, and how would you fund it? Because incarceration is expensive, and drug addiction counseling is very limited in this rural community.
I would closely be working with Jack Easley, who's basically the guy you know to contact to get someone in the house of rehab with their addiction. Jack has many connections and can have someone proceed in a matter of a few days. Jack has also has treatments, ways to help fight drug addiction. We want them to be in recovery.
So, speak about the expense of incarceration as well. That's and again, you have two choices. The judge has two choices: to incarcerate someone, which is expensive to taxpayers, and they realize that, and then they have the option of drug treatment, which, as we know, there's a great deal of recidivism in the drug treatment program. So how can we find the funding here in a rural community? And Jack Easley is a great resource, and the Champions Drug Coalition here in Crittenden County is a great resource. But we're very limited. Where can we go find the type of resources that we need to improve this situation, or do we just incarcerate them?
Right. I would continue to, apply for 100% payback grants that would help assist in covering the cost of information for drug material. Also, I would keep the drug fund going with the sheriff agent as now is in place of things like this. These funds come with arrest and property and money seizures. Also, another way of fighting our drug issues is getting John Sheffman, who is a school resource officer, has been applied in their program. and our sheriff's office agent. I'm blessed to have told him that John has got several grants to help the plan improving the fight against drugs in our school also. I would encourage John to keep looking for those grants along with myself, and understand that John has been a great asset for kids in school systems, and I will make sure they stay close relations of helping John with needs to continue.
Thank you. So you were given a couple of questions, and there's one wild card question that you were not given in advance.
Correct.
We're going to move on to it right now, Don.
Okay.
So you have, during your campaign, you have said that if elected, you will seek formal training as a law enforcement officer. The training is 20 weeks long if you go to the academy. And it's on site, of course. So how would you manage daily operations in Crittenden County while you were gone to train?
I'd be relying on deputies I got on duty and my staff in the office.
So as a follow-up to that, also I think as part of your campaign platform, you have indicated you want to keep the sheriff's department, the existing deputies,
Yes.
on staff. Of course, one has already left. Is there any chance to bring that individual back, or how would you fill that void on the department? Because you only have two. That would, if you have to leave the county, you would just have two deputies.
There's two deputies, yes. Yes, I'm gonna try to get him to come back, if he'll come back.
So how, we live in, of course, a modern era, and we have email, we have text message. Can that be utilized while you're gone? I mean, because I would assume the sheriff would want to be in close contact with what's going on. How do you keep close contact with all?
Get the emails and internet and
Speak about again, this goes back to the same question. So you could potentially be gone for 20 weeks if elected, and you fulfill that promise. What kind of relationship do you feel like you have with Marion Police Department and the Kentucky State Police Department and the sheriffs around that could provide some support? How do you feel about that? Explain.
I've got a real good relationship.
Can you go into depth and explain that just a little bit? From what way? I know you were a constable for years and had been around, so explain a little bit.
Which over the last 20 years, I've been in and out of contact with the Marion Police Department and Sheriff's Office, some state police, but I stayed in contact with them to keep things going and see what needed to be done, what I could do, to do this.
Okay. We're going to move on now to question number 3. As sheriff, your responsibilities are varied. Beyond being the county's top law enforcement officer and policing the community, you will have administrative responsibilities. Tantamount to them all is the collection of taxpayer money. And you will also need to prepare a budget. You will need to secure your evidence in cases. Your budget will be subject to state audit, and you will have to manage employees. What administrative skills and experience would you bring to the sheriff's department in these areas?
Being able to prepare a yearly budget, I have run my own business, construction business, mechanic business since 1996. Every year I must keep up with the day-to-day operations of my business. During the yearly budget, I have to give estimates for jobs and future salaries for my employees each week. I also plan to keep on doing the office duty, who is responsible for the budget now and have been in the office for 25 years experience of doing that job. I'm going to keep my man in the office.
So, of course, one of the security of our children in school is one of the issues on everybody's minds and their hearts right now. And as the sheriff, I'm sure you have a close enough relationship and understand that the sheriff's department provides right now the existing SRO at the school with a uniform, his equipment, a cruiser, but the school district pays for the salary or reimburses the county for the salary. So the legislature is now required that at some point this county is going to have to comply with this law that you are going to have an SRO at every campus, and we have 2 campuses. How important is it to you to see that there is an SRO at every campus, and how will you fund that on a tough budget that's already tight?
Hire another resource officer in the school system. I will continue a close relationship with our school system and staff, taking and talking to physical court and asking for fundings for another officer for our kids' safety. I'll also work with the city of Marion, discussing ways to might help by assisting using their alcohol funds.
Of course, that alcohol fund, the tax, it's the tax on alcohol, and you feel like they would be amenable to giving you some of that money to spend on SRO?
I believe we would.
I know they're using some now for the DARE program. All right, Don, that's the end of your segment. We appreciate your responses, and we're going to take just a moment now and prepare for the mayoral part of the program and their questions. But first, I believe there is a point of information that former representative, or still Representative Lynn Beckler, I guess at this point. Lynn, are you somewhere, I believe, wanted to make some type of addendum to the constitutional amendment question? So, Don, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chris. I just wanted, since I'm currently in the House, I wanted to kind of address the constitutional amendments very, very briefly. Constitutional Amendment 2 is the one that's about abortion. And all that amendment says is that there is no constitutional right for abortion. It does not say that there can't be a right for abortion in the Commonwealth. The legislature would still have the opportunity to change the law if the legislature so desired. The reason this was put on the ballot and voted is that in several states, some judges have defined a constitutional right for abortion, even though that wasn't in their constitution. So this just says that the unelected judge or even an elected judge couldn't define a right for abortion in the Constitution. If the General Assembly wanted to go ahead and authorize abortion at any stage, they could still do that. So I just wanted to make that clarification. That amendment would not by itself outlaw abortion. Thanks, Chris.
And while you're here, Lynn, we do, as a community, thank you for your service in the legislature for 5 terms. Am I correct? Sometimes I mess that up in the newspaper. 5 terms, and we appreciate all Lynn's service in Freeman. So now we will move on to the Mayoral Race part of this program, and as you know, unless you've been touring California for the last 6 months, Marion has a water crisis, and it has somewhat consumed a lot of my time, and I'm just a bystander trying to inform you folks what's going on. I can only imagine what the officials have been trying to deal with, those who have a responsibility to solve this and make sure we don't run out of water. So this is a very important part of the program because we're going to be selecting a new mayor. Being the mayor of Marion, Kentucky during most times is probably not a very difficult thing to do in a small town. You're being the mayor, you sign checks and go to festivals and make sure we don't run out of money, and you try to keep taxes low. Isn't that right? I think that's part of what the mayor tries to do in Marion, Kentucky. But now we have a real crisis, and we are getting ready to face maybe 3 years of potential situation with a water shortage like we're dealing with right now, unless something can be done to rectify it immediately. And I have not heard an immediate solution to this. So we're excited to hear from these candidates. And our first candidate, I've not heard what order we're in. So do we have a candidate ready to go on stage? And our first candidate will be Austin Valentine Jr. A lot of us know him as AJ. So AJ, we've had an opportunity to visit with the sheriff's candidates, and they have a very different job, and they deal with crises every day. The city administrator and the mayor and the city council have a real issue on their hands, and it's water. And water is part of life, as we know. So you have, much like the sheriff's part of the program, they have been informed of 2 of the 3 questions that we will ask them so that they can somewhat prepare for it. And we will begin with mayoral question number 1. Specifically, on the topic of water, how do you balance the need for water security with cost to the customer? And as you know, environmental fees have already made it difficult for water and sewer customers to make their monthly payments. And a long-term solution to the drinking water crisis reportedly will cost millions. What's the financial answer to this problem? Because it certainly will not be fixed with 100% emergency funds or grants.
Sadly, there's no balance. There's no balance whatsoever. Water is a necessity of life. It's the vitality of our town. And when the levee broke at Lake George, and then they had to do the final breach, that cut the lifeblood to our town. And so there's absolutely no balance at this point whatsoever. It's going to cost, and it's going to cost a lot of money. The sad thing is there hasn't been any movement. Now, why? I have no idea. Sadly, that's just the way it is. But what this is going to take, it's going to take a lot of grants. We're going to have to look at a lot of grants. I know it says, most people would say, hey, grants is not going to do it. It's not going to be grants. There's tax options. I prefer not to do tax options. But I think the key to a majority of the financial issues with this is going to be in the grant writing process.
You done?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in follow-up to that, of course, I've sat in every city council meeting, and I know you've been to a number of them. I've spoken with a lot of the bureaucrats from the state who are involved in this process. And what we're hearing is that there are a couple of solutions, a couple of paths that can be taken for solutions. One is regionalization. That's buying water from a third-party provider, the Crittenden Livingston Water District, the Princeton Water District, Sturgis, Webster, somewhere else. Or rebuilding the dam and renovating the plant. The bureaucrats have told the city of Marion's leaders and others that they're not forceful about it in the public meetings, but kind of whispering behind the scenes that grants are going to pretty well be almost out of the question if you rebuild the dam and renovate the plant. You can get some possibly, but not nearly as many as regionalization. how important is it for you to maintain Marion's independence and autonomy in the water business?
Well, like you said, there's a couple of different options, okay? And the first thing is that we've got to look at is which route that the city's going to go. Do we try to save the lake? Do we try to save Lake George? If that is an option, which I think that should be the first plan of action, got two different plans here that I've looked over that I've thought about. And the first one is that we try to save the lake. And in order to do this, we're literally going to have to sit down and negotiate with the water districts of the adjoining counties and come up with a fixed rate 3-year plan to where they can supply us water. We would have to interconnect with all these districts to provide a sufficient flow of water for the city of Marion. That 3-year window would allow us to plan financially for the rebuilding of the levee. It'll also give it time for it to get water in it and become a good water source. Also, that would give time to look for funding for the water plant itself. If we took the second option and went for regionalization, the only options that we've got, other than trying to find alternate sources of income, which I will discuss here in just a second, is that we can meet with Fredonia and possibly discuss some type of cost-sharing plan and run a line to Princeton and regionalize. At that point, it would still be an issue. We would still have to meet with the other water districts. We would have to set up some sort of fixed rate for a temporary period of time, long enough for the construction phases of this project to be implemented and completed. Now, in order to get the extra funding, there's a couple of different types of directions really that we can go with the grant writing process. Lake George, it's a fishing area. Oh, I thought this was a sorry, I thought this was a 3-minute question.
Well, I think that was the follow-up, wasn't it?
Oh.
Yeah, that was the
Okay.
follow-up. You might even be able to get some of that in on this next question because it is somewhat similar.
Okay.
So, water and sewer, of course, is part of the community infrastructure. And Marion clearly has an infrastructure issue, whether that's maintaining streets, sidewalks, park system, and many of the others buildings that belong to the city. The fire department's nice and city hall's nice, but you see our streets department is probably not up to modern standards. So again, maintaining and updating individual parts of our infrastructure is a key role of local government. So what can you do to provide the leadership that will strike a balance between spending resources on this integral part of government while still trying to keep taxes low?
Well, and this is going to piggyback on the finding of funds. First off, I wouldn't go out and spend thousands of dollars on senseless water testing like it was done for the Lucille mine site. I would keep a tight grip on spending. I have a strong construction background, and I would utilize that knowledge to keep costs to a minimum on construction projects. I would also do oversight on contracts, looking for ambiguities that could lead to costly change orders. And from a contract standpoint, I can assure you, change orders can break a city. It can also make a contractor very rich if they know what they're doing. I've dealt with change orders in the past, and that's something that needs to be looked at because there is an issue. Any type of construction project, including the levee project, if that goes through, would have the potential for change orders. So there needs to be some oversight. There also needs to be a balance between preventative maintenance and daily repairs. Preventative maintenance seems to be a dirty word in this business. Look at where we are right now with everything. If we had more preventative maintenance, things would be a lot better. Now, like I said before, grants is a very important thing. Anytime that we can pick up grant money from any source, even if it's a beautification project, recreational projects, any type of recreational grants could go to use out in the Lake George area to help get things under control. There also needs to be some changes in the structure of the government. We need to look more at housing and building codes in the city of Marion. I feel that we need to implement a city building inspector. That way it would ensure safety in projects. We'd be able to review blueprints and issue building permits for revenue. It would also ensure that contractors had the proper licensing to do the job. Another thing that I'm interested in is the implementation of residential rental inspection programs. This would force landlords to register their property. It would also have them do a yearly inspection or a pre-move-in inspection, which would be associated with fees. Any rental property not found to be up to standard building code would undergo code enforcement and be given a set time to do corrective measures in order to be in compliance. This also helps ensure the health and safety of our city and our city residents.
You talked about maintenance being a bad word, so you're insinuating that we haven't done enough maintenance.
Preventive maintenance.
Preventive maintenance, right. So where, if elected, beyond water, where do you begin?
First off, repairs need to be categorized. They need to be based on need and they need to be based on age. Also, repairs, when repairs are done in an area, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. You'll see an area that's been dug up, and then they turn around and they put down a nice layer of asphalt on top of it and repave the road. It seems like that sometimes people get the cart before the horse. Some of these projects, when there's repairs that need to be made, we need to look at those water lines, we need to look at those sewer lines, we need to look at those sidewalks and see if those can be lumped into a project where we can take care of, repair, and update while we are doing those repairs. Unless it's an emergency repair, and that's understandable. Sometimes things happen, and you have to dig things up and fix it. But too many times, there's useless money. There's money that's spent uselessly on projects, and people turn around, and then they turn around and respend and respend and respend, working on the same area.
Okay, the question which you had not been provided in advance will be your final one. So, one of the resounding complaints from citizens during this water crisis over the last 6 months or so has been the lack of straightforward, timely communication. How would you improve the communication link between City Hall and the citizens it serves? And how can you provide information that is important to them and the personal effects that this situation and others might have on their lifestyles? How can you get them that information?
Well, of course, I'm a history guy, and a lot of people know that. Woodrow Wilson said that government needed transparency. And that's something that we really don't have a whole lot of here in the city of Marion's transparency. Whenever a decision's made, if you're not sitting in the council chambers, you have no idea what took place. Now, it's been a nice thing. Some things has been posted on Facebook, and that's all well and good. But the word needs to get out. There needs to be more stuff put in the paper. When something's important, the people need to know about it. Announcements need to be made. The mayor should address the people on a regular basis. I mean, you have a governor that does a State of the State address. You have a president that does a State of the Union address. I've yet to see a mayor do a State of the City address. Things like that need to change. People need to know what's going on, and especially with the water situation. I promised my wife when I got up here, bless her heart, she's sitting there in the corner, and she's probably turning red right now, that I wouldn't get upset. But I hate to differ. I hate to say it, I am pretty upset. Things have went too slow. This happened in April. Look at where we're at. Nothing substantial has been done. Nothing significant has been done. That has got to change. Our own governor did not know that this was a state of an emergency. I made a phone call myself on the 16th of June. Spoke with the governor's office. They had no idea what was going on here in the city of Marion. Administrator at the nursing home was in a city council meeting. She confirmed the same thing. Nobody got in contact with anybody. That has got to change. We have got to let people know what's going on, and when something's in crisis, you don't send a fax to Frankfurt and sit on your thumb and wait, hoping that a miracle's going to happen. It don't work that way. If elected mayor, I'm going to be on top of it. I'm sick and tired of being drugged through this mud and muck with the situation that we're in. I have a family, I have kids that are here in this city that are living through this mess right now, and them, along with anybody else that lives in the city limits, should not be going through this. If you let me, Mayor, I'm going to make it my job to change this now. My name's Austin Valentine Jr., and I appreciate your vote.
So we have a follow-up. So, back to the original question about the communication. Now, I'm in the communication business as well. And you mentioned the press. I mean, we're at every city council meeting. We write an article on every city council meeting that exists and that it occurs. And then the ordinance is required to be run in the legal section of the newspaper. So it's there. It's just not being consumed.
But
now,
you do not see something from the mayor.
well, and that's my point. So we're going to get that. So you mentioned transparency and speeches and addresses. But like you said, unless you're in that room, you don't hear those. How are you going to get to the people?
Through the local media, through your newspaper. Make addresses that are printed. It would be nice if we actually had a little spot on a television cable channel to where the meetings could be televised. That's something that could be entertained. But those messages would get out. They would either get out through the newspaper, they would get out through the Facebook, or they'd get out through the local media. If it's an important issue, it should be seen on Channel 6 and every other TV station around here. How much media coverage has everybody seen about the water crisis on our local television stations? Only see it whenever there's a council meeting. You don't hear nothing else about it. The mayor needs to make addresses that the people hear. And these addresses, whether they're printed in the newspaper, or they're made on live television, or they're made on a Facebook channel, or they're made on a YouTube channel, or they're addressed standing at the gazebo next to the courthouse, the mayor needs to step up and say, hey, this is what's going on. And that's a problem. That's not how it's been run. When it becomes an issue like the deal with the water, everybody that lives in the city of Marion is in a problem. They are all in a crisis together. I'm sorry, but there's no captains of the ship when everybody's in a crisis. That's why it's important to reach out to the people, because you know what? There might be somebody out there that's got a good idea, but how are you going to know if you're not addressing the people to find out?
Thank you, Austin Valentine Jr. We appreciate that.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate everybody that put this on, and I appreciate your vote in November. God bless you.
While we're bringing in our next candidate, I'll give you a little background here on Austin Valentine. He grew up here in Crittenden County. He works over at the Job Corps as a tech. He teaches math. Here we have our next candidate for Marion City, Marion Mayor, Donnie Arflag. Donnie, we're going to start and just go in the same order as we did the questions. Everyone has been explained how this process is going to go, that you have been informed of two of the questions, but the third question you have not been given an opportunity to prepare for. So the mayoral question number 1, specifically on the topic of water. How do you balance the need for water security with the cost to the customer? As you know, environmental fees have already made it difficult for water and sewer customers to make their monthly payments. And a long-term solution to the drinking water crisis is going to cost millions. What's the financial answer to this problem? Because it certainly will not be fixed with 100% emergency funds or grants. You take mine. Make sure it's down. Oh, and pull up closer.
That's close enough. All right, how about now? All right. So if you know, it's been possible for me to answer these questions in about 3 minutes, but the two most important factors are the sustainable source of water or water security and the cost. The financial part of the question is presented leaves only one answer. If emergency funds and funding is going to pay for 100% of the cost, then you'd have to borrow the money for the shortfall. If the grants happen to be matching grants as we've gotten in the past, then our share can be made up of manpower and equipment hours on the project instead of the capital outlay. I don't believe that any solution can be decided on until we know all the options and exactly how much it would raise our water bills. Currently, we produce our own water at a cost of $2.50 per 1,000 gallons. We're paying Crittenden Livingston $3.34 per 1,000 gallons for the water we purchase from them. If you know how city government works, the final decision on what Marion does about water will ultimately fall on city council, as the mayor will not have to vote unless it comes to a tie vote. Since the city council controls the city's budget and spending, they will be the ones responsible for making decisions, not the mayor nor the city administrator. With the unexpected exit of our city administrator, we're losing our most involved and knowledgeable person we had working on the problem, which means the next group moving forward will be facing an uphill battle.
So, Donnie, as a follow-up to that, just specifically, and I know losing the city administrator at this time really makes things difficult, because now we can't be in limbo for another 3 months waiting for the new council or the new mayor to take over. We have to do something. So what is your plan? What is your plan right now, or if you were mayor right now, what would your plan be for these next 3 months?
First and most important, we have to fix the levee at Lake George. It has to be prepared for the wet season gets here so we can collect the water this winter and have for use next summer. If we don't, next year it's going to be repeated this summer, which nobody wants to go through that again, of hauling water and water conservation and water distribution. I can assure you that had it not been for the state's involvement, the levee would have been repaired a week after they had the breach of it. The state has not allowed us to touch it. They won't allow us to turn a shovel of dirt out there or repair anything. If we do, we face a $25,000 a day fine. Fact is, the State Division of Water has been, shall I say, strongly encouraging and pushing us to go to a regional water system and to do away with our water plant. Our regional system would be Crittenden Livingston. That's Caldwell's out of the picture now. In order to supply us with the amount of water we need, Crittenden Livingston would have to do a $35 million plant upgrade to their plant, plus install a new 10-mile line from Salem to Marion at a cost of approximately $5 million. So that option has a $40 million price tag, at least a 5-year completion time. So in the meantime, we would have to continue to produce our own water, so we have to have Lake George back and up and running again. Although the regional water system sounds to be a logical choice to a lot of people, there are many unknown factors that are relevant to the decision and questions that have to be answered that we have no answers to. Time constraints now will not let me go in and list all of them. There's many, and most of them we have no answers to yet, so no one can give you an honest and educated answer until all the questions are answered.
So question number 2. Obviously, water is a part of our infrastructure, and infrastructure is a problem not only in Marion, Kentucky. It's a problem elsewhere, from bridges to streets to sidewalks to parks, and infrastructure is an integral part of local government. So from water, and we've talked about water, so beyond that, how do you strike a balance in solving the infrastructure issues with regard to these other types of infrastructure? How will you strike a balance between keeping taxes low and getting on a good maintenance and improvement program?
Well, like you said, if you watch the news, you know the infrastructure is failing all across America, so we're not alone with it. Once our sewer project is completed, we should be in good shape with it. The project not only included the new sewer plant, but we replaced many of the lines that were in the system that were allowing groundwater to seep into it. Our sidewalks over the past few years, the state has replaced some of them on South Main Street, and we've received a grant for over $100,000 for the sidewalk to school project, which replaced the sidewalks on West Elm Street and part of Main Street. The streets, we receive about $60,000 each year in municipal aid from the state. If you've had a driveway paved lately, you know how far that would go on paving the street, not very far. So we usually try to save up 2 or 3 years worth of aid and then put out the contract, because it's easier to get a contractor in when we've got more money to spend. Now, on the parks, the Tourism Commission was formed to take the financial burden of the parks off the city taxpayer, and for tourism to fund the parks' needs. Their money comes from the 3% food and tax rate. On improving the infrastructure, it costs money. We're very short on revenue producing industry in our county, like some of the others. Our budget runs very tight and doesn't leave a whole lot of room for many extras. Every year, our employee costs go up for health insurance and retirement costs, things we have no control over, but we have to pay. We're behind most other cities in our payment for our employees. Most of them can take jobs somewhere else and make more money than we pay them here. And we're very fortunate to have the ones we have who want to live here and work here for the benefits and pay that they can get. An example is our city administrator recently just left. His salary was $75,000. He's going to a town half our size and starting out at over $110,000 a year. Our police officers don't get on hazardous duty retirement, which a lot of cities offer them, and that's the sole reason we recently lost one of our city police officers to Livingston County, because they had hazardous duty retirement. The honest reality of things is, unless there's a significant increase in the city's income, our infrastructure repairs and replacements will come at a very slow pace like it has in the past. As with everything in life, the quality and quantity of what you get depends on how much you're willing to pay for. The next mayor will obviously face the biggest challenges of any mayor in the history of Marion, and will require more personal involvement and time at City Hall than any mayor in the past. I believe I'm the most experienced and qualified. Being retired, I'm the only one who can put in the time and be available when needed to work with the city administrator, the engineers, water districts, and others without any work or employer time constraints. I will ensure that the city council and city residents will get timely updates on all major events and not just monthly. This election could be one of the most important in Marion's history. In January of next year, we could potentially have a completely new council. We will have a new city attorney, a new mayor, and a new city administrator. So I urge you to carefully consider your vote on all candidates.
Okay, your final question, this again is one that you have not been made aware of. It's one of the resounding complaints from citizens during the water crisis has been the lack of straightforward, timely communication. How would you improve the communication link between City Hall and the citizens it serves? How can you provide information that's important to them and personally affects them? How are you going to get your message out?
If you in some of the meetings we've had over the water for the last several months, I've made complaints several times about the lack of information even getting out to us, the council. In fact, most of the time, we were receiving the information the same time as the general public was. There was a gross lack of communication to us and the public. And when the things were put out, the resources that are available to us here locally are the radio station, the newspaper, and social media. Some people had suggested at one time that we needed to mail out notices every time to people, but the cost of that for postage would be pretty expensive, so we'll have to rely on those other means that we have available to us.
So that brings up a good point. So, we hear it all the time. Well, not everybody gets the newspaper. Not everybody listens to the radio. Not everybody has Facebook. I don't know what they do for entertainment, to be honest with you. But is there any other way to get information to the general public other than these traditional means and the modern means of social media?
The best way for the public to get the information, and I've said this many times in council meetings, is I wish that every time we had a meeting, the room was full. I think that fiscal court meetings, I've been to several of those, and I can't tell you how many times I've been the only person in there that wasn't on fiscal court. People have to be involved in the community, and being involved means going to the meetings, listen to the information yourself firsthand, don't take it from somebody else, go yourself and hear it firsthand. Ask your questions of people there. Council is there to answer those questions, the mayor and the city administrator. That's what their job is. And if you've got a question, that's where you need to be to ask and get an answer.
So typically, the only time anybody shows up is when there's a big problem, right?
That's
like
it.
a water crisis.
And then the crowd will kind of fade out and they're still, but no, I wish the meeting rooms were full every time we had a meeting.
All right, thank you, Donnie Arflack, and we will wait on our next candidate to come out. And while Donnie's stepping away, he's been around for a long time, rescue squad chief, and he's retired now, so God bless him. We all want to be retired. So our final candidate for mayor of Marion, Kentucky is a write-in candidate. She did not initially run for mayor, but then after the death, the very unexpected death of another mayoral candidate, she said she felt compelled to run. It's what we actually had it in the newspaper. So, Deanna, we have gone over each time the process. We're going to go through, so we're going to read 2 questions that you've already been allowed to see in advance to somewhat prepare for. Prayer for, is that a Freudian slip?
That'll work.
So we'll just begin with those 2, and then we'll go to what we call a wild card question at the end that you haven't heard. So just to begin with, specifically on top of water, how do you balance the need for water security with cost to the customer? As you know, environmental fees have already made it difficult for water and sewer customers to make their monthly payments. And a long-term solution to the drinking water crisis will cost millions. What's the financial answer to this problem? Because it certainly will not be fixed with 100% emergency funds or grants.
Absolutely not. Thanks, Chris. So, water security and financial security they obviously go hand in hand. And at this time, we don't have much of either. At this 11th hour and at this point, we have no choice to take drastic action and to reach out for help. Initially, when this crisis hit, we tried different alternatives. We tried to come up with solutions. But really and truly, we've been chasing rabbits all summer. And we have not made the progress that we need and what you deserve. We have got to have a long-term solution. Now, since Adam Ledford has left, we have added Leighton Croft to take in Adam's responsibilities. But what has happened, we need to fill in the gap. And
Right now, next week, I will be presenting to the council a solution for this water crisis need. And what I will be proposing is a consultant. We need a heavy hitter. And we have someone on board working with another local entity, and he has agreed to help us. And his credentials are impeccable. He has infrastructure experience at the highest level of government, and this is what we need at the 11th hour. And so I need everyone's support so that we can get this on and stop wasting time with the water. In short, our best solution is to go to Crittenden Livingston. We have exhausted every other option that we have, and this advisor has made it perfectly clear. For the past 20 years, the state has pushed towards regionalization. We may not like that, that may not be what we want, but we don't have a choice. We can also save Lake George at the same time. The two are not mutually exclusive. And we can do that, but we have to strike now. We have lost way too much time, and now's the time to get this done.
So explain maybe some more in detail, just as a follow-up here. So what is your plan for solving the water crisis? It's regionalization, and why, if it is, why?
Absolutely. So money is the key here, and if we try to go this alone and to self-sustain, chances are we're not going to get the grants or the help that we need. We have reached out to surrounding communities, and quite frankly, we have lost time. Most of them are unable to do so. The Lucille mine, I'm glad that we tried, but we again have lost too much time. Crittenden and Livingston, they do have their fees. They are regulated, and the hard fact, we will get money if we go to Crittenden and Livingston, where if we go this alone, we will not get the funding that we need. And that's the angle that we have to work, and that's what we deserve. It wasn't my favorite option in the beginning, but at this point, it truly is our only option.
So, infrastructure is clearly a problem in Marion, as it is all over the Commonwealth, all over America, really.
Absolutely.
Maintaining and updating individual parts of our infrastructure is a key role of local government. From water, as we've already discussed, to sewer, bridges, sidewalks, streets, parks, how can you provide the leadership that will strike a balance between spending resources on this integral part of government, yet trying to keep taxes affordable?
When I started on the city council 6 years ago, my first budget meeting, I was disheartened and I was shocked at how little funding was there. I was surprised. I was naive. I did not realize how hard it was. Over the last 6 years, we have managed to operate closer into the black area. We're getting there. The last 3 winters have been mild. We haven't had a lot of hits to the road, but as you said, that is our main focus, and we've got to spend the people of Marion's money more wisely. Use it, go out for bids, and make intelligent, wise decisions, and that's what we need as a mayor, and that's what I'm going to offer to you. Of course, is experience and decisiveness, and that's what you need. You need no holds barred communication. I have a master's degree in organizational communication, and that was one of the things with the water crisis was communication. I couldn't communicate to you because I didn't know, and as your mayor, I'm going to give you all of the information that I have. Whether I have to go back and change it, correct it, that's okay, but I need to get that information out to you, be it all-call system, an article in the Crittenden Press, monthly, if you would allow, but absolutely communication, because we all deserve better than what we were given this time.
So you said you were decisive. Tell your audience, if you become mayor, where will you begin? Beyond water, where will you begin to rebuild Marion's infrastructure?
Most definitely our streets, of course. We, over the last 6 years, we have fixed potholes as needed, but we have got to put more money into the streets completely instead of having to do piecemeal work on the roads. Secondly, the water, sewage, the drainage line, the storm drainage lines are in ill repair. I have heard that they are almost as old as the city in some parts, and what's going to happen, I can't speak what has happened with the infrastructure over the last 20 or 30 years. I can only speak to the last 6 years. And we have to prioritize what we need and aggressively go after, of course, the roads, the fire hydrants, and the drainage system.
So here is the question, your so-called wild card question, and you have you touched on it a good bit. It deals with communication.
Okay.
And you mentioned that you felt like you needed more communication, but of course, you know, I've been privileged to sit in on all of the council meetings during this crisis, and a resounding common denominator that comes from the crowd of people in there is they don't have enough communication. And you know, I'm in the communication business as well, and it's, you know, we try to provide as much as we can, but you as mayor, how can you overcome this this criticism that you're not communicating with your public?
When you have lack of communication, you have suspicion. And a lot of the information that I received was actually from the Crittenden Press. And that's unacceptable. Can you hear me? So during this crisis, we weren't aware of a lot of the things. So I would go online to see what was going on, and it was hard for me to answer your questions. It was embarrassing that I couldn't give you the answers because we didn't know what was going on. As your mayor, I will of course be open to phone calls and any visits that you need, but again, with a monthly article, all-call systems, and of course with our Facebook page to keep you updated. And there's no need. I know one of the reasons why that we didn't receive a lot of the communication was because it was changing quickly. There's no shame in putting information out there. Get it out there, and if you have to correct it or update it, by all means do so, but we deserve to know more at the time. So transparency is key. If we have nothing to hide, go ahead and communicate what is going on. One of the things that I have said during a lot of the negative comments that have been made about the city council during this crisis is, please read the Crittenden Press. Please come to the meetings. Just because you don't understand, does it make it crooked or does it make us stupid? But the problem is, our responsibility is to communicate to you so that you know.
Well, I appreciate that plug, thank you. But you know, and I hear it constantly too. Not everyone gets it. Much to my chagrin, I wish everyone did. And not everyone has Facebook. I have a lot of friends who just refuse to use it. So, what other means can you overcome this criticism?
You know, actually, that would be a good opportunity for a suggestion for a forum. How do we reach people who aren't on social media or they do not buy the press? I'm going to stay with the all-call system. Most of us do have cell phones to update. I know if your kid is in sports, you're familiar with that process, and especially in an emergency situation. The boil water alerts were scary to me because there are a lot of people who would not know until it was later, and that's unfortunate, and they need to know.
All right, thank you, Deanna Browning, writing candidate for City of Marion's mayor. And that will conclude our portion. And that will conclude our mayoral candidate portion. And we will move on to the city council. And this will not be a question-answer type format. This will simply be, they have 3 minutes, right? 3 minutes to, we're getting fresh mics, and I'm getting some marching orders here. So, first of all, I want to acknowledge that Mike Byford is here, but he will not speak. Mike's been on the city council for many years. Back 1989, I think he was first elected. And he served straight through, except for I think one term. So a 2-year period that he actually ran for mayor one year and was unsuccessful, but he couldn't run for city council that year. So Mike Byford is here. We will begin with Dwight Shearer. I think I saw Dwight over on this side a few months ago. Dwight himself has been on the council for many years, and I'll let him fill you in on the details. Dwight. And one thing I want to say, I've been meaning to put this on the coaches show, and I understand you missed a football game last week. So. First time since 1974 he's missed a rocket. 71 that he's missed a Friday night football game. That deserves
That either means I'm loyal or I didn't have anything else to do on Friday nights. I don't know. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of stuff tonight. I'll tell you a little tale. When I first ran for city council, which was 20-something years ago, I went to some of the meetings to kind of get a feel of it and see what was going on. And the big thing that came up then was, what are we going to do with the parking meters? Every meeting, we talked about the parking. They talked about the parking meters. Well, they would table it till the next meeting. And that went on for 3 or 4 months. Election came. Some new council members got elected. I was one of them. And I thought, and when I went to the next meeting after that, they said, well, we're just going to let the new council do it. We're not going to decide anything. And I thought, wow, I hope the decisions don't get any tougher than that over the years. I was wrong. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot more to say. I've been on there for a long time. I've seen people out here tonight that has called me and asked me questions about things privately, and I think I've always given you an answer or sent you to someone who could give you an answer, and that's all you can do. There's a lot of other things involved in being on the city council besides the major crisis that happened, and I give you all credit for figuring out what's going on. I'm not going to make a lot of statements about that. I will say that Ben Franklin said that you should only believe half of what you see and nothing of what you hear. So, and that doesn't apply to the printing press or to the radio because they do a good job of telling stuff. But social media is another thing. So I would appreciate your vote as I have over the past years. If you think I've done a good job, appreciate your vote. And if not, we'll go from there. But there are going to be a lot of tough decisions that's going to have to be made by whoever's on the council. Some of them are not going to be very popular with the council members, and it's not going to be popular with everybody. But those decisions will have to be made. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dwight Shearer. Next up will be Troy Mcgahan. And on deck will be Glenn Conker. That's a baseball term. Everybody knows what that means, right?
Thank you very much. My name is Troy Mcgahan. I pastor Central Baptist Church here in Marion. I've been here for 4 years and dearly love this place. I also work at the radio station, and we would be glad to be an outlet if we get the information. So, as far as what's going on with City Council, I just want to say this. there's a lot that's got to be done. A lot of decisions that, quite frankly, are going to be tough and not popular. And we're going to have to look at those. I do believe this, that we're going to have to look at every avenue as far as raising money, whether it be through grants, whether it be through low interest loans, or even, and I hate this word, we're going to have to be real. What is the one revenue that government has? It's taxes. I despise taxes. But it's not the taxes that's so much the issue. We've got to look at being fiscally responsible with that tax money. So, that's one thing we're going to have to look at. Secondly, we're going to have to work in friendly cooperation with the county government. I think that's been done, but it needs to continue. We need to be able to work together with other elected officials in the city. We need to also try our best to keep young working families here in Marion. How do you do that? You've got to take care of the infrastructure. Our water. We've got to fix that. Here's another thing. People say, well, Troy, we need to fix Lake George. Here's the thing. Whether we like it or not, we're at the mercy of the state. Whatever they say we can do, we can do. But I'm going to tell you folks, it's going to be more than just going out to Lake George and putting some concrete in the breach. There's rules and regulations, and the state controls every bit of that. So we're going to have to work with them. Also, we're going to have to, along the same lines, submit to whatever the state says. Yes, we need to look at every possible avenue. But the reality is, folks, we're in a mess. And we need to work together as a community to make Marion the best it can be. Thank you. God bless. I appreciate your vote.
So we appreciate Troy Mcgahan. Next up is Glenn Conger. And on deck is Tracy Cook.
I can't see anybody. I broke it. Now, it's a little bit different standing here than it is leaning over the counter at the dip. Do want to thank y'all for inviting me here. Why I'm running, I started thinking about it back a few years ago now, when I had the water bill at the dip, which ran about $550 a month. One day I got the bill in the mail and it doubled. I think everybody in the town knows what that means, that environmental fee. That was no fun. Where we're at with this water situation, we can't afford to double it again. So we're going to have to depend on a lot of help to get it taken care of. Excuse me. The Lake George crisis. We all know that didn't have to happen. I think it was a very bad decision that we broke the dam in the first place. We did listen to the state then, and we haven't listened to them since very well. The dam was in imminent danger of failure for a long time. There were, the last inspection was in 2019, which listed the dam in poor condition and nothing was done. Our sewer plant was, we were talking about the EPA for years that it needed to be replaced or repaired. Nothing was done. That's my biggest problem, is our infrastructure, or basically everything in Marion, is not being repaired. We don't have anyone who is taking care of Marion. Just driving through Main Street this summer, you'll notice the weeds up to your knees on the sidewalks in downtown in front of the courthouse. That's kind of embarrassing. That's one sign that we're not taking care of things. The dam, if someone had paid a moment's attention, when they were warned that there were problems, they made an effort to fix it before the crisis came up. We wouldn't even be having a meeting here. If they had worked with the state or the EPA before they threatened to fine the city on the sewer plant, we probably could have had this done years ago. We wouldn't be in the same shape we are now. That is the entire thing. We need to take care of our buildings, take care of our infrastructure. Has anybody driven to City Lake, the old City Lake, driving past the city water treatment plant? It really looks bad. It looks like almost a World War II reject building. You go back to the City Lake, there are trees growing against the dam. In my mind, that seems to be a problem. What if the wind blows a tree down next to a concrete structure? We'll be completely out of luck. Our main thing is, you guys have hit on a lot of the points that I wanted to talk about already. Communication and working together with everyone. We haven't done much on getting the problem taken care of. The state, under the declaration of emergency, has done a lot. With the help of the National Guard, Natalie, your guys were fantastic in helping out too. They have pretty much taken care of the bill for all that's been done so far. The city has just rubbed their feet on getting it taken care of. We need to make a plan. Right now we don't have a temporary solution. We have not even talked about a long-term solution. We're under the second revision of the Governor's Emergency Act. That expires at the end of this year. Are they going to renew it? You think they'll be sitting up there going, well, they've had 9 months to do something, they haven't done anything. Are they even going to renew it then? What are we going to do then? At this point, we may be back to having water hauled at the end of this month. October is usually dry. What if November is dry too? We're right back to where we started from. What are we going to do next year? Are we going to tell everybody to put their lives on hold, put their businesses on hold? The factories, how much money have they had to pay out to have those tankers of water sitting outside? The nursing home said they spent $50,000 to have water hauled up to their building. Businesses are not going to pay that. These factories, there's too many places wanting to have industry. They're going to be begging. They're going to be offering tax credits. They're going to be getting them. I was originally kind of upset about the governor's decision. During the pandemic, I felt they were excessive closures. But once again, the governor and his staff has really taken care of Marion and done a lot for us. And for that, I really appreciate it. It'd be great to repair Lake George. By the time we get Lake George repaired, we'll probably be looking at having a water plant replaced. That's millions and millions of dollars. We're going to have to look at what's going to be the most economically feasible that we can get assistance with. Thank you.
We appreciate all of our candidates keeping an eye on the clock here, that they can see the digital readout. It is getting a little late, but it's been a great forum and a great opportunity, and I appreciate having the opportunity to be here. So up next, Tracy Cook, and on deck will be Taylor Davis.
I want to thank everyone for coming here to take part in this forum. This kind of involvement and communication is what we need to make our community what we want it to be. I'm running for city council because I, like many of you, have been frustrated by our current water crisis, and I want to be part of the solution for this issue and others. I feel that there should be an open door of communication between the citizens of Marion and the people that we elect to make decisions that affect our lives and the community. And if that means you have to come to every city council meeting, then so be it. Before I continue, let me quickly introduce myself for those that may not know me. I am Tracy Cook, and I have called Crittenden County home for the last 21 years and have lived in Marion the last 17 years when I married Chris Cook. I understand the challenges of small businesses in Marion, having opened one and then faced the difficult decision to close it several years later. but working to see that our business community has the resources it needs to not only survive but to thrive is one of the challenges that I want us to tackle together. Marion should be a vibrant, thriving community. I love this town, and everyone who lives in this community knows that there are problems that need to be addressed, not the least of which is the current water crisis. We need to find the most affordable, responsible, and sustainable solution to this long-lasting problem so we can end this crisis as soon as possible. Part of our frustration in this water crisis is that we don't know what is going on, which is an example of why regular communication to all is so critical. Being from a family whose grandparents left this community to find work makes the issue of creating opportunities to make a good living at home a personal priority. It pains me to see that many of our kids and grandkids still have to leave our city to find work. Wouldn't it be nice if they could earn a good living in our town? There are other issues that negatively affect our community. I believe that if we come together as a community, there is no problem that we can't resolve. We just have to communicate and work together. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your ideas, and I want to hear what issues are important to you. It would not just be me as a member of the city council and they're making decisions. This is about all of us. And I'll work with city, county, and state officials to find solutions. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I do promise to keep an open mind and an open ear for problems and solutions. And I will always be honest with you. I would like to ask you to vote for Tracy Cook for City Council on Election Day. Thank you for your attention and support.
Thank you, Tracy. Next up is council candidate Taylor Davis, and Thomas Hawthorne is on deck.
Thank you, Chris. Before I get started real quick, I do want to make mention that it is my wife's birthday today, so you guys got me in quite a little bit of trouble tonight. I'll just say it like that. I also want to thank the Crittenden County Democrats and the Crittenden County Republicans for putting this on as well. A little bit about me. I am a lifelong resident here in Crittenden County. I currently live in Greenwood Heights. You may know me as the voice of Crittenden County Rocket football. With my co-host Evan, who makes me look a lot better than I actually am on the radio. And if you still don't know me, I'm the brother of Kayla Maxfield, and that usually clears up everything because everybody knows her. My qualifications, I have 3 college degrees, associates from Madisonville Community College. I have a bachelor's from Murray State University. My major was history, my minor was in political science, and then I have a master's as well from Murray State University, that is in teacher leadership. I am a 8th grade U.S. history teacher at Union County Middle School as well. In terms of my platform, it boils down into 2 things, and I'll be very quick on that because I don't have a lot of time. First thing is relaying information to citizens. For a democracy or constitutional republic, whatever you want to call it, to work efficiently, there needs to be a well-informed electorate. And after speaking with many citizens, fellow citizens in Marion, that seems to be the issue that comes up the most. Typically, issues in a campaign boil down to issues on taxes. It boils down to the purse on that. But what I've been seeing is that people want more information on what's going on in the council. I have a background in radio broadcasting as well. I used to work mornings at WMJL, and I have an understanding and a background in being able to relay information, how people take in information, so on and so forth. So I feel like I can effectively do that if elected to the council. Furthermore, as you see with more not just traditional ways like the Crittenden Press, WMJL, so forth, being able to really push forward social media as well, being able to come up with different ways with the council to push out the information. Basically, if you want to know what's going on, I'm going to make it a priority to make sure that the information is readily available. The second thing, and it will come as no surprise to anyone, I believe, here tonight, simply because it has been hit on so much, and it kind of echoed the information that I provided to the press for my platform, is the foundations of Marion is what I'm focusing on primarily in my campaign as well. I think in this particular instance in the world today, not just here in Marion, not in the Commonwealth, but in the state as a whole, what I'm noticing is that Marion is more of a canary in a coal mine rather than this just being, with the water crisis, its own thing. I think there's a lot of struggling communities that are struggling financially in terms of infrastructure and being able to repair that infrastructure effectively. And I think on the council, if elected, I will work with whoever is elected, no matter, and the mayor and the new city administrator as well, to come up with cost-effective solutions that will not be too taxing on taxpayers in order to effectively move forward in Marion. I think my timer went off there as well. The screen went black there. But anyway, with that being said, I think, and I said this in the press as well, you can paint a house as much as you want to, but if the foundation of a house is not secure, it's not going to stand. And that's what we have to work on. Roads, fire hydrants, sidewalks, leak detection, to make sure that if we do have some sort of problem later on down the road, we can work to make sure that it doesn't become a catastrophe. I'm a firm believer that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and so that's what I'm working for if you elect me. I'll be happy to talk with anybody at any time afterwards tonight, or just any time leading up to the election, to be more in depth, and I appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thank you, Kayla's brother. Up now is Thomas Hawthorne, and on deck is Wanda Olson.
It's good to go last, to get to learn what everybody's going to talk about. My name is Tom Hawthorne. As known by the Crittenden Press as the restorer of dilapidated buildings of Marion, Kentucky. I've saved 8 buildings here in town, tried to get businesses in here, and improve our town. I love Marion, Kentucky. My family rode in horse and buggy and settled on the farms. Got tons of cousins, aunts, uncles. We have very deep roots here. First problem that I'd like to cover, number 1. Everybody's talked about it tonight. The water situation. One thing that hasn't been said, and I've watched this for the last 3 decades, as I walked back to the city hall behind the sweet shop. The water situation. Did you know that more water leaks through our pipes in the city than what we use? Did you know we got pipes that were installed before World War I? Went to the city council meeting, and I asked, how many water pipes were replaced this year? 0. It's pretty obvious to me if your water is leaking out, you should fix these pipes. Common sense, right? We've got basically one thing. We get our water just like the county does, clean water right now. How many people have red water and brown water come in their house? It's not safe to drink. It's not safe to bathe. Your body's your largest organ, and you got polluted water? How do we expect to get any industry here for jobs for our kids? It's pathetic. Number 2, drugs. Our town is plagued with a drug problem just like the rest of the country. We got an open border. Drugs are pouring in here. Fentanyl, heroin. All the drugs are here. We got our grandparents raising their grandchildren because their kids are strung out on drugs and they can't take care of their families. It's pathetic. How do we solve these problems? We got to work with the police, untie their hands, give them the tools they need to bust these drug dealers. You know, where we pay our water bills and our city bills, people can write it down. It's going to take the city. When you see drugs being dealt, write it down, put it in there, you'll be anonymous. And let the city hand it to the police, and then follow up and make sure something's being done. We got to do something about the drug problem. Another thing I heard, number 3, we got so much corruption. It's pathetic. The mayor is the one that runs the town. I'm not just saying this last mayor is corrupt. The ones before, I watched it for years, for decades. Wasting money, throwing away, having all these studies. Fix the water pipes, fix the stuff. Don't be doing all these studies, pass the envelopes around, clean up the mess. We can fix this. We can fix all these problems. Quit passing it on to our grandchildren. I'm Tom Hawthorne. I'm running for city council. I appreciate your vote.
And last, certainly not least, Wanda Olson.
Good evening. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. My name is Wanda Olson, and I've lived in Marion most of my life. I'm 56 years old, and I graduated from Crittenden County High School in 1984. Went on to cosmetology school, and I've owned and operated a small beauty salon in Marion for soon to be 38 years. First off, I'm not a politician. I live on Main Street in Marion. I see a lot of people, and over the last 38 years, I get a lot of questions, and I can talk a lot in the beauty shop with a chair, but this, it makes me nervous, so anyway, I can speak all day long and talk about all kinds of issues, but like I said, if you put me in front of a chair or behind a chair, I can talk to you all day long. I decided I wanted to give back to our community through people asking me, why don't you run? Why don't you run for city council? You know, I'm not a politician is what I tell them. Well, you have a voice. You've seen, because of people coming in, whether it be officers or, you know, council members, people like that, we talk about a lot of issues in the salon. So I decided that I'm a hard worker. I've taken care of myself most of my life, and I try to do the best that I can to get anything done in any situation. So my motto is, if you have a problem and you can't figure it out, always keep trying until you find someone or a solution, and never give up. I want to do what I can to contribute back to our city and to making our city a better place to live. I thought that fresh eyes on all of the issues that everyone's talked about tonight. We all have the same problem. The communication, I hear that daily. Water hydrants in the city, I've been told half of them don't work. And I think that, you know, I don't know all the situations because I'm not on the council, but I want to help improve our city as well as others that are running for the council. And although I know there are lots of rules and regulations that for any issue, you have to follow the rules. So if I was elected, I feel like that we are working, if you're elected, you work for the citizens and the people that elected you into the office, and you should always consider, when making decisions, what they have, you know, what they're wanting to know about, and the communication comes in on that too, because they come, you know, I'm gonna be an open door because I have a business already, so, you know, anybody's welcome to come if I get elected as city council member. There are lots of issues besides water, which is our number one problem, and I believe that there's somebody out there that can help our city. And as long as, you've got to dig for it. I myself, as others have stated, I called the governor's office one day too and was told the very same thing. Not one city official from Marion, Kentucky had contacted them. And I told that night at the city council meeting. And Jared, he said that's what he was aware of at that time. But I'm not going to drag it on. I just want you to know I appreciate your vote. And if I am elected, I will do whatever I can possibly do, and I will work hard for our city to make things better and for communication to our city. Thank you very much.
Well, as we draw to a conclusion, I will say that tonight we've heard so much about what's wrong with our community. And indeed, we have our problems. But we love Marion, Kentucky, and that's why we're here. And that's why we pray that the decisions we make on November 8th will preserve Marion, Kentucky for not only the rest of our generation, but all those to come. So we love Marion. It's a great place to live. And just remember to go vote on November 8th. These candidates, some of them plan to stick around. You're welcome to visit with them when the lights come on. And the parties, the Republican Party of Crittenden County and the Democratic Party of Crittenden County, thank you for being here. And thank all of you for watching on Facebook and YouTube. Again, thank you.
And that's it here at Fohs Hall. We thank you for tuning in with us tonight. Remember to get out there in November and vote. We'll see you later.